I trusted her with everything. My heart, my dreams, my bank account passwords, everything. And she sold it all for $70,000. Not $1 million. Not even $100,000. $70,000. My name is Lucas, and this is the story of how the woman I loved more than life itself destroyed me for the price of a mid-range sedan. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night, the thing that makes my hands shake when I think about it. She didn't do it because she was desperate. She didn't do it to save someone's life. She did it because she wanted a fresh start. Without me. And she was willing to burn our entire world to the ground to get it. If you've ever trusted someone completely, if you've ever given your whole heart to another person, you need to hear this. Because what happened to me could happen to anyone. And the signs? They were there all along. I just didn't want to see them. This is going to be hard for me to tell, but I need to get it out. I need you to understand how betrayal doesn't come with a warning label, how it doesn't announce itself, how it comes wearing the face of the person you love most in the world. So grab something to drink, get comfortable, because this story, it's going to take a while. And I promise you, by the end of it, you'll never look at the people closest to you the same way again. Let me take you back to where it all began. 5 years ago, I was 28, working as a senior software developer at a tech startup in Austin, Texas. The pay was good, really good actually. I was pulling in around $120K a year, had stock options, the whole deal. Life was comfortable, but something was missing. That something turned out to be Emma. I met her at a coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday morning. Cliché, right? But that's exactly how it happened. She was sitting by the window, sketching something in a notebook, and when I walked past to grab my usual black coffee, she looked up at me and smiled. Not one of those polite, obligatory smiles you give strangers. A real smile. The kind that reaches your eyes and makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. I should have just walked away. Should have grabbed my coffee and gone to work. But I didn't. What are you drawing? I asked, immediately regretting how generic the question sounded. She turned the notebook toward me. It was a sketch of the coffee shop, but reimagined as some kind of fantasy tavern, with elaborate details and characters hidden in every corner. I'm an illustrator, she said. We're trying to be, anyway. Right now I mostly do freelance graphic design to pay the bills, but this. She tapped the notebook. This is what I actually love. We talked for 2 hours that morning. I was late for work for the first time in 3 years. I didn't care. Emma was everything I didn't know I needed. She was creative where I was logical. She was spontaneous where I was planned. She saw magic in ordinary moments while I saw data and patterns. We were opposites, but in the way that felt like completing each other rather than clashing. We started dating that same week. Within 6 months, I knew I wanted to marry her. Within a year, I did. The proposal was simple. We were hiking at Enchanted Rock, one of her favorite places, and as we sat watching the sunset from the top of the massive pink granite dome, I pulled out the ring. I'd spent 3 months' salary on it, a platinum band with a single diamond that caught the light like a piece of captured star. Emma, I said, my voice shaking despite all the times I'd rehearsed this moment. I never believed in soulmates until I met you. You make every single day brighter. Will you marry me? She cried, happy tears streaming down her face as she nodded yes over and over again. We held each other as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. That moment, God, that moment felt like the beginning of everything beautiful in my life. I didn't know it was actually the setup for the worst pain I'd ever experienced. We got married in a small ceremony 6 months later. Nothing fancy, just close friends and family in a garden venue outside the city. Emma wore a simple white dress that she'd found at a vintage boutique. She looked absolutely radiant. When she walked down the aisle toward me, I genuinely felt like the luckiest man alive. During our vows, she looked into my eyes and said, Lucas, you are my safe place. My home. I promise to stand by you through everything life throws at us. I promise to love you even when it's hard. I promise to choose you every single day for the rest of my life. I believed every word. Our first 2 years of marriage were honestly pretty great. We bought a small house in a nice neighborhood, the kind with tree-lined streets and neighbors who actually knew each other's names. Emma set up a home studio in the spare bedroom for her illustration work. I got a promotion at work, bumping my salary to $145K. We weren't rich, but we were doing well. More importantly, we were happy. Or at least, I thought we were. Emma's freelance illustration career was slowly taking off. She'd landed a few jobs doing character designs for indie video games, some book cover work, and she was building a decent following on Instagram for her fantasy art. The money wasn't consistent, but she was passionate about it, and I wanted to support her dreams. You don't have to stress about money, I told her one night as we were cooking dinner together. I make enough for both of us. Just focus on building your portfolio, taking the projects you actually care about. She kissed me on the cheek. You're too good to me, Lucas. Seriously, how did I get so lucky? Looking back now, I can see how naive I was. How blind. But in that moment, everything felt perfect. We had our routines. Saturday mornings were for farmers market runs and trying new breakfast places. Sunday evenings were for meal prep and watching cooking shows together. We had inside jokes that would make us burst out laughing in public. We had plans for the future, kids, maybe moving to a bigger house in a few years, traveling to Europe. I trusted her completely. With everything. She had access to all our accounts. She knew all my passwords. She had my credit cards. I never questioned it because why would I? She was my wife, my partner, my best friend. About 3 years into our marriage, Emma started spending more time on her phone. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal. She was networking, she said, connecting with other artists, potential clients. She joined some online communities for illustrators and started attending local creative meetups. I'm so glad you're finding your people, I told her, genuinely happy that she was building a creative community. Yeah, she smiled, but something about it seemed off. Forced, maybe. It's really great. I'm learning so much. The meetups became more frequent. Once a week, then twice a week, sometimes 3 times. She'd come home late, smelling like wine in coffee shops, talking about the amazing artists she'd met, the opportunities that were opening up. I didn't suspect anything. Why would I? I trusted her. Then, about 4 months before everything fell apart, Emma started talking about wanting to take her career to the next level. There's this intensive workshop program in Santa Fe, she said one evening, showing me a website on her laptop. It's 3 months long, for serious illustrators who want to go professional. They have industry connections, portfolio development, the works. It could really launch my career, Lucas. I looked at the price tag. $15,000. That's pretty steep, I said carefully. But if you think it's worth it, we can make it work. Maybe we can save up for a few months and you can do the next session. She bit her lip. The thing is, the next session that has openings isn't for another year. And I feel like I'm ready now. Like if I don't do this now, I'll lose momentum. I thought about it for maybe 30 seconds before nodding. Okay, let's do it. I'll move some money from savings. Your career is important. The way she hugged me that night, with such intensity, such desperation almost. I thought it was gratitude. I thought it was love. I didn't know it was guilt. Emma left for Santa Fe on a Monday morning in February. I took the day off work to drive her to the airport. We got coffee at the terminal, and I held her hands across the small table. I'm going to miss you like crazy, I said. 3 months is a long time. I know, she replied, and I swear I saw tears forming in her eyes. But we'll FaceTime every day, and you can visit on weekends if you want. It'll go by fast. I'm so proud of you, I told her, for chasing your dreams, for being brave enough to do this. She squeezed my hands tighter. I love you, Lucas. Don't forget that, okay? No matter what happens, remember that I did love you. It was a weird thing to say, the past tense of it, the no matter what happens part. But I was so caught up in the emotion of the goodbye that I didn't really process it until later. I kissed her goodbye at security and watched her walk away, her backpack slung over her shoulder, until she disappeared into the crowd. The first week without her was harder than I expected. The house felt empty. Cooking for one felt depressing. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office, taking on extra projects. Anything to avoid coming home to an empty house. We FaceTimed every night, just like she promised. She'd show me her studio space, introduce me to her classmates through the screen, talk about the techniques she was learning. Everything seemed normal. Great, even. But then, around week 3, things started to change. The FaceTime calls became shorter, more rushed. She was always tired, she said. The program was intense. She needed to work on her portfolio pieces. I totally understand, I said, even though I missed our long evening conversations. You focus on your work. We can catch up on the weekends. The weekend calls didn't last much longer either. By week 6, we were down to maybe a 15-minute call every few days. Text messages became sparse. One-word responses. Busy. Tired. Later. I started to worry. Was she losing interest in me? Was the distance putting a strain on our marriage? I tried to book a flight to visit her, but she discouraged it. The program is really demanding right now, she texted. I'd feel bad having you come all this way when I'd barely have time to spend with you. Let's wait until I'm done, and then we can take a real vacation together to make up for lost time. It made sense. I told myself I was being paranoid. She was just focused on her work. This was important to her. I needed to be supportive, not needy. But the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. I tried to distract myself. I hung out with my buddy Marcus more, went to the gym more regularly, picked up some new hobbies. I started learning guitar, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. The house was lonely, but I was managing. Then, about 10 weeks into her program, something happened that should have been a massive red flag. I was doing laundry, something Emma usually handled but obviously couldn't from Santa Fe, and I decided to wash the sheets on our bed. As I was pulling them off, something fell from under her pillow on her side of the bed. A notebook. Not her usual sketchbook, but a smaller journal with a leather cover I'd never seen before. I shouldn't have opened it. I know that. Privacy is important, even in marriage. But something made me do it anyway. Call it intuition. Call it paranoia. Call it whatever you want. The first few pages were innocent enough. Sketches, notes about color theory, ideas for illustration projects. But then I got to a page that made my blood run cold. It was dated from about 6 months before she left for Santa Fe. And it said, I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending. Lucas is a good man. He deserves someone who loves him completely. But I'm not sure I'm that person anymore. I feel trapped. Like I'm living a life that was meant for someone else. Someone more domestic. More traditional. I need more than this. I need more than him. I read it 3 times, my hands shaking. Then I flipped through more pages, finding entry after entry expressing doubts about our marriage, about me, about her life. Sometimes I imagine what it would be like to just disappear. Start over somewhere new. Become the person I actually want to be instead of the person everyone expects me to be. Saw him today. We talked for hours. He understands me in a way Lucas never has. Is it wrong that I'm excited to see him again? I feel guilty for feeling this way, but the guilt isn't enough to make me stop. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. Who was him? How long had she been feeling this way? And why the hell hadn't she talked to me about any of this? I wanted to call her immediately, confront her, demand answers. But something stopped me. Maybe it was fear of what I might find out. Maybe it was the hope that this was just a phase, just her working through some stuff, and it didn't actually mean anything. I put the journal back exactly where I found it, and tried to pretend I'd never seen it. But I couldn't pretend. It ate at me. Every text message from her, every short phone call, I was analyzing everything, looking for hidden meanings, signs of betrayal. Are you okay? She asked during one of our calls. You seem distant. The irony of her saying that to me almost made me laugh. I'm fine, I lied. Just tired from work. Okay, she said, but she sounded relieved. Like she was glad I wasn't pushing for more connection. Well, good news. Only 2 more weeks, and I'll be home. I can't wait to see you. Yeah, I said, trying to inject enthusiasm into my voice. Me too. Those last 2 weeks were torture. I barely slept. I kept going back to that journal, reading and rereading those entries, trying to figure out what they meant, trying to prepare myself for whatever was coming. Finally, the day came. I drove to the airport to pick her up, my stomach in knots the entire way. When I saw her walk out of the terminal, my breath caught. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, styled differently. She was wearing clothes I'd never seen before. More bohemian, more artistic. She looked beautiful, but like a stranger wearing my wife's face. We hugged, but it felt stiff. Awkward. How was the flight? I asked as we walked to the car. Fine. Long. She wasn't looking at me. She was checking her phone. The drive home was filled with uncomfortable small talk. The workshop was great. She learned so much. She made some amazing connections. All surface level. Nothing real. When we got home, she immediately went to unpack. I made dinner while she was upstairs. Pasta, her favorite. I set the table, lit candles, tried to make it special. A welcome home celebration. She came down and smiled when she saw it. This is sweet, Lucas. Thank you. We ate mostly in silence. I kept trying to start real conversations, to bridge the distance I felt between us, but everything felt forced. So, I finally said, putting down my fork. We should probably talk about us. About how you're feeling. About where we are. She looked up at me, and for a second, I saw panic in her eyes. What do you mean? I chose my words carefully. I feel like there's been some distance between us, and I want to make sure we're okay. That we're on the same page. We're fine, she said quickly. Too quickly. The distance was hard, but I'm home now. Everything's going to go back to normal. But it didn't go back to normal. Not even close. Over the next few weeks, Emma was physically in our house, but emotionally, she might as well have been on another planet. She spent most of her time in her studio with the door closed. She took calls that she'd step outside for. She was constantly on her laptop, angling the screen away from me whenever I walked by. I tried to reconnect with her. I suggested date nights. She was always too tired. I tried cooking special meals. She'd eat quickly and excuse herself. I tried initiating intimacy. She'd make excuses. Headaches. Exhaustion. Stress about a project. We went from a couple who used to be physically affectionate all the time to roommates who barely touched. Emma, I said one night as we were both in bed, her on her phone, me staring at the ceiling. Talk to me. Please. What's going on? Did I do something wrong? She put her phone down and turned to look at me. No, Lucas. You didn't do anything wrong. You're literally perfect. That's kind of the problem. What does that mean? She sighed. Nothing. Never mind. I'm just stressed about work. I'm sorry I've been distant. I'll try to be better. But she didn't try to be better. If anything, she pulled further away. I started noticing other things too. She'd changed all her passwords. Her phone was now always face down. She started working out, buying new clothes, taking more care with her appearance. Not for me, apparently, since she barely looked at me anymore. But for someone. The worst part was that I loved her so much. I kept making excuses for her behavior. She was adjusting to being back. She was stressed about her career. She was going through something and needed space. I kept giving her the benefit of the doubt because the alternative, that she was actively betraying me, was too painful to accept. One Saturday morning, about a month after she'd come home, I woke up to find her side of the bed empty. I checked her studio. Not there. I checked the whole house. Her car was gone. I texted her, "Where are you?" An hour later, she responded, "Sorry, went to meet a potential client for coffee. Forgot to leave a note. Be home later." She came home 6 hours later. 6 hours for a coffee meeting with a client. How'd it go? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Really well. They want to hire me for a whole series of illustrations. This could be huge for my career. That's great, I said. What's the project? Oh, it's for a children's book series. Fantasy themed. Right up my alley. She wouldn't look me in the eyes while she said it. I wanted to push, to ask more questions, but I was afraid of what I might uncover. So I just nodded and said, "I'm happy for you." The client meetings became more frequent. Twice a week, then 3 times a week. Always lasting several hours. Always leaving her in a strangely good mood when she came home, more animated than she'd been with me in months. I knew something was wrong. I knew it in my gut, but I still couldn't bring myself to directly confront it. Part of me was afraid she'd lie. Part of me was afraid she'd tell the truth. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I'd left work early because I had a headache and just needed to lie down. I came home around 2 p.m., expecting the house to be empty since Emma had said she'd be working at a coffee shop all day. But her car was in the driveway. I walked in quietly, and I heard voices coming from upstairs. From our bedroom. My heart started pounding. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, frozen, listening. Emma's voice. I know. I'm going to tell him soon. I just need to figure out the right way. A man's voice, coming through her phone on speaker. You've been saying that for months, Em. At some point, you just have to rip off the Band-Aid. The longer you wait, the worse it's going to be. I know, Emma said, and she sounded close to tears. I don't want to hurt him. He's a good person. He's going to be hurt either way. The man's voice said, gentle but firm. You can't protect him from this. And you're not being fair to yourself, or to me, by dragging this out. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My whole body went numb. You're right, Emma said. You're right. I'll do it this week. I promise. I should have walked up those stairs right then. Should have confronted her immediately. But instead, I backed out of the house as quietly as I'd come in. I sat in my car in the driveway, shaking, trying to process what I'd just heard. She was leaving me. She was in love with someone else. And she'd been planning this for months. All those business meetings, all those late nights in her studio, all those times she'd pulled away from me. It all made horrifying sense now. I sat there for 20 minutes, my mind racing. What should I do? Confront her? Demand answers? Or wait to see if she'd actually tell me like she said she would? Finally, I started the car and drove away. I couldn't face her yet. I needed time to think. I drove around aimlessly for hours, ending up at a park by a lake where Emma and I used to go when we were first dating. I sat on a bench and watched the sunset, remembering all the times we'd sat in this exact spot, talking about our future together. How had it all gone so wrong? My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Hey, where are you? Your car's not here." I stared at the message. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to text back and tell her I knew everything. Instead, I wrote, "Went for a drive. Be home later." She responded immediately. "Okay. Want me to save you some dinner?" The casual normalcy of it made me feel sick, like she wasn't actively planning to blow up my entire life. I drove home around 9 p.m. Emma was in the living room, watching TV. "Hey," she said, looking up with a smile. "You okay?" "That was a long drive. Just needed to clear my head," I said. "Work stuff." She patted the couch next to her. "Want to watch something together?" I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. But I sat down next to her, and we watched some mindless sitcom, and I kept glancing at her, wondering how she could sit there so calmly, so normally, when she was keeping such massive secrets from me. That night, lying in bed next to her, I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for her to tell me. I wasn't going to give her the chance to control the narrative or soften the blow. I was going to find out everything. Who this guy was, what exactly she'd been doing, and what she was planning. I was going to take control of my own life, even if that meant facing the worst truth I could imagine. The next morning, after Emma left for one of her client meetings, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went into her studio and started looking through her things. I felt like a terrible person doing it, invading her privacy, but she'd been lying to me for months. At this point, I needed answers more than I needed to respect boundaries. I found her laptop. She'd left it open, which was unusual, almost like she was getting careless, or like part of her wanted to get caught. Her email was open. I hesitated for just a second before I started reading. What I found shattered me. The emails went back almost a year, to a man named Ryan Chun. It started innocent enough. Professional. He was apparently someone she'd met at one of those creative meetups, another illustrator who'd made it big in the indie game industry. Their early emails were about art techniques, portfolio feedback, networking opportunities. But then, around 8 months ago, the tone changed. "Ryan, I have to say, talking with you is the highlight of my day. You're so talented and so underappreciated. Your husband should be shouting your work from the rooftops." Emma, Lucas is supportive in his way. He just doesn't really understand the creative world. It's nice to talk to someone who gets it. Ryan, I get you, and I think you're extraordinary. From there, it escalated. The emails became more frequent, more personal, more flirtatious. They started meeting for coffee, for drinks, for working sessions that clearly involved very little work. 6 months ago, right around when she started talking about that Santa Fe workshop, the emails became explicitly romantic. "Emma, I can't stop thinking about you. This is crazy. I'm married. I shouldn't feel this way. Ryan, sometimes the heart wants what it wants. I'm not going to pressure you, but I need you to know that I'm falling for you. Hard. Emma, I think I'm falling for you too. What are we going to do?" I felt physically sick reading this. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely scroll. But it got worse. So much worse. I found an email from Emma to Ryan dated 3 weeks before she left for Santa Fe. "I've made a decision. I'm going to end things with Lucas. But I need an exit strategy. The house is in both our names. Our finances are completely intertwined. I can't just walk away with nothing. I need to be smart about this. The Santa Fe workshop is perfect timing. It gives me 3 months away to figure things out, to plan, and to be with you without having to sneak around. I know this sounds cold, but I need to protect myself financially. Lucas makes good money, and I've contributed to our household too, even if my income isn't as consistent. I deserve my fair share. My lawyer said I should document everything, all our assets, all our accounts. I'm going to do this right, and then we can finally be together for real." The word lawyer jumped out at me. She'd already talked to a lawyer. She'd been planning this for months while still sleeping in my bed, still saying she loved me, still letting me believe we had a future together, but I still hadn't found the worst part yet. I kept digging through her emails, and I found a thread between Emma and someone named Jessica, who appeared to be her lawyer friend. Jessica, okay, so I ran some numbers based on what you told me about your financial situation. In Texas, it's a community property state, so generally assets acquired during the marriage are split 50-50ths. That includes the equity in your house, savings, retirement accounts, etc. Emma, right, but here's the thing. Lucas has about $180K in his 401k from before we got married. And he got a $50K signing bonus at his new job last year that he put in a separate investment account. Can I get any of that? Jessica, the 401k from before marriage is his separate property. The signing bonus is trickier. Did he get it before or after you separated? Emma, we haven't separated yet, but I'm planning to leave in about 4 months. Jessica, here's my advice, and I'm telling you this as a friend, not as your lawyer since I don't practice family law. If you want to maximize what you walk away with, you need to be strategic. Document all shared assets. If you have access to any of his separate accounts, note the amounts. Don't do anything illegal, but information is power in a divorce. Emma, what if there was a way to access some of his accounts before the divorce? Like, if I needed to secure my financial future? Jessica, be very, very careful here. If you take money from his accounts without his knowledge or consent, that could be considered theft. Even in a divorce, you could get in serious legal trouble, and it would look terrible in front of a judge. Emma, right. Of course, I wouldn't do anything illegal. I'm just trying to understand my options. But then, in an email dated just 2 weeks before she came home from Santa Fe, I found the smoking gun. Emma to Ryan, I figured it out. There's a way for me to get enough money to start fresh without having to wait for a long, drawn-out divorce. Lucas is so trusting. He gave me access to everything. There's an investment account he set up that has about $70K in it. He checks it maybe once a month, if that. If I transfer the money out to a new account before I leave, by the time he notices, I'll be gone. It'll be messy legally, but I'll already have the money to hire a good lawyer and start my new life. I know it sounds bad. I know it's not ethical. But I've given 5 years to this marriage, living a life that wasn't really mine. I deserve something for that. And this is the cleanest way to make a break. Ryan's response, I don't know about this. That's legally risky. What if he presses charges? Emma, he won't. Lucas isn't confrontational. He'll be hurt, he'll be angry, but he won't take legal action against me. He's too soft for that. And by the time everything shakes out, I'll be with you in Seattle, starting my actual career, living my actual life. I read that email 10 times. My vision was blurry with tears. My wife, the woman I loved more than anything, was planning to steal from me and disappear. I checked the date on the email. It was sent 3 weeks ago, which meant she was planning to do this soon. Very soon. I immediately logged into my investment account, the one she was talking about, the one I'd set up with that signing bonus and had been contributing to for the past year. $72,347.89. It was all still there. She hadn't done it yet, but she was going to. I sat there in her studio, surrounded by her artwork, her dreams, her whole creative life that I'd supported and encouraged and funded, and I realized that every single thing I thought I knew about my marriage was a lie. She didn't love me. Maybe she never really had. Or maybe she had once, but somewhere along the way, I'd become nothing more than a financial safety net. A comfortable life she was willing to exploit before moving on to something better. The worst part wasn't even the affair. I mean, that was devastating, but people fall out of love. People make mistakes. I could have maybe understood that, as much as it would have hurt. But the calculation of it all, the cold, deliberate planning, the fact that she was going to steal from me and justify it as something she deserved, that's what really broke me. I printed out the most damning emails. I took screenshots of everything on my phone. I documented all of it. Because even though I was heartbroken, even though I felt like my entire world was crumbling, I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Then I closed her laptop, left everything exactly as I'd found it, and went to our bedroom. I packed a bag with enough clothes for a few days. I grabbed my important documents, my laptop, some personal items that I texted my buddy Marcus. Can I crash at your place for a while? I'll explain when I see you. He responded immediately. Of course, man. You okay? No, I typed back. But I will be. I was walking out the front door when I heard Emma's car pull into the driveway. For a second, I considered just leaving without talking to her. But I couldn't. I needed to see her face when I told her I knew. She got out of the car with a bright smile, holding a coffee cup. Probably just came from meeting Ryan. "Hey," she said cheerfully. "I didn't expect you home. Playing hooky from work." I just stood there in the doorway with my bag, looking at her. Her smile faded. "Lucas? What's going on? Why do you have a bag?" "I know," I said simply. "Know what?" "Everything. Ryan. The affair. Your plan to steal from me and leave." The color drained from her face. What are you talking about?" "Don't," I said, my voice harder than I'd ever heard it. "Don't insult me by lying right now. I read your emails. I know everything." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Lucas, I can explain." "Explain what exactly?" "Explain how you've been cheating on me for almost a year. Explain how you were planning to steal $70,000 from me. Explain which part, Emma?" Tears started running down her face. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen like this. I do care about you. You care about me?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You have a really twisted definition of caring, Emma. People who care about each other don't lie to them for months. They don't cheat. They don't plan to rob them." "I wasn't going to rob you," she said, her voice rising. "That money, half of it should be mine anyway. I've been your wife for 5 years. That money is from before we got married and from a separate bonus. You have no legal claim to it, and you know it. That's why you were planning to just take it and run." She wiped her eyes, and I saw something shift in her expression. The guilt was being replaced by defensiveness, by anger. "You know what, Lucas? Yes, I was going to take it. Because I've given 5 years of my life to this marriage. 5 years of pretending to be happy in this boring, conventional life that you wanted. I put my career on hold. I played the good wife. I earned that money by being stuck here with you." Her words hit me like physical blows. "Stuck? With me? I supported your dreams. I paid for that workshop. I never asked you to put your career on hold. You didn't have to ask. That's what marriage is. It's compromise and sacrifice, and I'm the only one who's been doing any sacrificing." "That's insane," I said, shaking my head. "I've done nothing but try to make you happy." "That's the problem," she shouted. "You're so focused on making me happy that you never bothered to actually know me. You fell in love with some idea of who you thought I was, not who I actually am." "Then who are you, Emma?" "Because the person I thought I married wouldn't do this. The person I thought I married wouldn't be a liar and a thief." She flinched at the word thief, but then her jaw set in a hard line. "Get out. I'm already leaving. But here's what's going to happen. I've documented everything. Every email, every plan, everything. If you try to take that money, I will press charges. If you try to claim you deserve half of my separate property in a divorce, I will fight you every step of the way. And I will win, because I have proof of your intent to defraud me." "You're threatening me?" "I'm protecting myself. Something I should have done a long time ago." I walked past her to my car, threw my bag in the back seat. She just stood there in the driveway, crying, watching me leave. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. She was still standing there, getting smaller and smaller until I turned the corner and she disappeared from view. Just like my marriage. Just like the life I thought I had. I stayed at Marcus's apartment for 2 weeks. He was a good friend, never pushed me to talk when I didn't want to, just let me exist in my grief. I took time off work, telling my boss I had a family emergency, which wasn't entirely a lie. Emma tried to contact me constantly. Calls, texts, emails. At first they were apologetic. "Please, Lucas, we need to talk. I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake." When I didn't respond to those, they got angrier. "You can't just leave and refuse to communicate. We need to figure this out like adults." Then they got desperate. "I moved the money." "I swear I didn't. I would never actually do that. Please just talk to me." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I hired a lawyer. A good one, recommended by a colleague at work who'd been through a messy divorce. Her name was Patricia Rodriguez, a sharp woman in her 50s who'd been practicing family law for 20 years. I showed her everything. The emails, the affair, the plan to take my money. She leaned back in her chair and whistled low. She really documented all of this in writing? Apparently, she didn't think I'd ever find it. Lucky for you, unlucky for her. This makes your case very straightforward. In Texas, adultery can affect the division of community property, especially when there's evidence of fraud or intent to defraud. With this evidence, we can argue that she should get less than the standard 50-50th split. I don't want anything from her, I said. I just want to protect what's mine and end this as cleanly as possible. Patricia nodded. We'll file for divorce citing adultery. We'll document all your separate property. And if she tries anything with your accounts, we have clear evidence of premeditation, which moves it from a civil divorce matter into potential criminal territory. The divorce papers were served to Emma a week later. I moved from Marcus's apartment into a short-term rental, a small one-bedroom place that felt lonely and temporary, but was at least mine. Emma's lawyer reached out to Patricia. They wanted to negotiate, avoid court, settle this quietly. Patricia set up a meeting. I didn't want to see Emma again, but Patricia said it would be good for me to be there, to show I was serious, to not let Emma control the narrative. The meeting was in Patricia's office. Emma showed up with her lawyer, a nervous-looking young guy who was clearly in over his head. Emma looked terrible, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, her hair unwashed and pulled back in a messy ponytail. Part of me felt bad for her. Part of me remembered that she'd brought this on herself. "Lucas," she said when she saw me, her voice breaking. "Please, can we just talk? Alone?" "No," I said simply. "Anything you need to say, you can say here with the lawyers present." Her lawyer cleared his throat. "My client wants to make it clear that she deeply regrets the affair and any pain she's caused. She's willing to agree to a straightforward division of community property and doesn't want to fight over Mr. Hayes' separate property." "How generous," Patricia said dryly. "Especially considering the alternative is we present evidence of her plan to steal from him and potentially face criminal charges." Emma's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "My client was emotional in those emails. She never actually took any money. No crime was committed. Intent to commit fraud is still legally relevant in divorce proceedings," Patricia countered. "And we're prepared to present all of this evidence in court if necessary." "What do you want?" Emma asked me directly, ignoring the lawyers. "You want to punish me? Fine. I get it. I deserve it. But can we please just end this without destroying each other?" I looked at her, this woman I'd loved so completely, and felt nothing. No anger, no love, no hate. Just exhaustion. "I want a fair settlement," I said. "I keep my separate property. We split the community property 50-50ths. The house gets sold, we split the proceeds. You get half of what I've contributed to my 401k during the marriage. I get the car since it's in my name. Everything else, we divide fairly. And I want you to sign an agreement that you won't make any claims on anything else, now or in the future." Emma's lawyers started to object, but Emma held up her hand. "Fine. I agree to all of that. And I want you to know," I continued, looking her in the eyes, "that I will never forgive you. Not for the affair. Not for the lies. Not for trying to steal from me. You took 5 years of my life, years I gave you in good faith, and you treated them like they meant nothing." Tears were streaming down her face now. "They did mean something. I did love you, Lucas. No," I cut her off. "You don't get to say that. Love doesn't look like what you did. Whatever you felt for me, it wasn't love." We signed the preliminary agreement that day. The divorce would take a few more months to finalize, but the worst of it was over. As Emma was leaving, she turned back to me one last time. "For what it's worth, Ryan and I aren't together anymore. He said he couldn't trust someone who would treat their husband the way I treated you. So I lost both of you." "Good," I said, and I meant it. The next few months were a blur of paperwork, of moving, of trying to rebuild a life that had been completely upended. The house sold quickly. We split the money, and I used my portion as a down payment on a small condo downtown. New place, fresh start. I threw myself back into work. Got another promotion. Focused on my career in a way I hadn't in years, now that I didn't have a marriage to balance. I started going to therapy too. Spent a lot of sessions unpacking everything that had happened, trying to understand where things went wrong, how I'd missed so many signs. "You trusted someone you loved," my therapist said. "That's not a flaw. The flaw was hers, not yours." But it didn't feel that way. I felt stupid, naive. I'd been so blind, so willing to believe the best of her, that I'd ignored reality until it slapped me in the face. "Trust is a gift," my therapist said. "She abused that gift. But that doesn't mean you should never trust again. It means you should be more careful about who you give that gift to." The divorce was finalized 6 months after I left. I got the paperwork in the mail, the official stamp that my marriage was over. I thought I'd feel relieved. Instead, I just felt empty. I went out with Marcus that night to a bar downtown. We didn't talk about Emma. We didn't talk about the divorce. We just drank beer and played pool and pretended everything was normal. "You doing okay, man?" Marcus asked during our third game. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Ask me again in a year." He nodded. "Fair enough." That was 9 months ago. Here I am now. 33 years old, divorced, living alone in a condo downtown, trying to figure out who I am outside of being someone's husband. I wish I could tell you I'm completely over it, that I've moved on and found someone new and everything is great. But that wouldn't be true. The truth is, I'm still healing. Some days are better than others. Some days I wake up and feel genuinely happy, excited about my life and my future. Other days I wake up and the first thought in my head is still her. Still the betrayal. Still the question of how I could have been so wrong about someone. I went on a few dates. Nothing serious. Nice women. Perfectly fine conversations. But I found myself unable to really open up. Every time someone asked me about my past, about my marriage, I'd give the briefest possible answer and change the subject. My therapist says I'm protecting myself, which is natural. But she also says that at some point, I'm going to have to decide whether I want to let that betrayal define the rest of my life, or whether I want to learn from it and move forward. I'm working on it. Here's what I've learned from all of this, the things I wish someone had told me before. First, trust your gut. Those feelings I had, those moments where something felt off, I ignored all of them because I didn't want to believe anything was wrong. I wanted so badly for everything to be perfect that I made excuses for red flags that, in hindsight, were absolutely glaring. When someone you love starts pulling away, when they become secretive, when their behavior changes dramatically, don't ignore it. Don't make excuses. Have the hard conversation. Ask the difficult questions. It might be nothing, but if it's something, you deserve to know sooner rather than later. Second, access to everything doesn't mean you should give it without thought. I gave Emma access to all my accounts, all my passwords, everything, because I thought that's what marriage meant. Complete openness and trust. And maybe for some people, that works. But I think there's a difference between being open and being naive. You can be in a committed, loving relationship and still maintain some financial independence, some boundaries, some protection for yourself. It's not about distrust. It's about being smart. Because unfortunately, people change. People lie. And you need to make sure that if the worst happens, you're not left completely vulnerable. Third, pay attention to actions, not words. Emma told me she loved me right up until the day I left. She said all the right things. But her actions told a completely different story. She was distant, secretive, planning an exit strategy while still sleeping in our bed. When someone's words and actions don't align, believe the actions. Always. Fourth, you can't love someone into being a better person. I thought if I was supportive enough, patient enough, generous enough, Emma would appreciate it, would love me more, would want to build a life with me. But you can't make someone value you. You can't make someone choose you. And trying to do so will only break your heart. Fifth, financial infidelity is real, and it's devastating. When Emma planned to steal that money from me, it wasn't just about the money itself. It was a complete violation of trust, of our partnership, of everything marriage is supposed to be. If you notice financial red flags in a relationship, unexplained expenses, secretive behavior around money, sudden changes in spending patterns, don't ignore them. Money issues are one of the top causes of divorce, and if someone is lying to you about finances, they're probably lying about other things too. And finally, the hardest lesson. Sometimes the person you think you know better than anyone is actually a stranger. You can spend years with someone, share a bed, share your life, share your dreams, and still not really know who they are deep down. Emma wasn't the person I thought she was. Maybe she never was. Or maybe she was, and she changed. I'll never really know. But what I do know is that I can't let that destroy my ability to trust again. Because if I do, then she's taken more than just 5 years of my life. She's taken my future too. I'm not there yet. I'm not ready to fully trust someone again. But I'm working on it. I'm in therapy. I'm rebuilding my life. I'm figuring out who Lucas is outside of being Emma's husband. I'm pursuing hobbies I gave up. I'm spending more time with friends. I'm taking better care of myself. And slowly, very slowly, I'm starting to feel like myself again. The condo is starting to feel like home. Work is going well. I'm even thinking about maybe adopting a dog, which sounds small but feels huge because it means I'm planning for a future here, in this new life. I ran into Emma once, about 3 months ago. It was completely by accident at a grocery store. We both froze when we saw each other. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hi," I replied. There was a long, awkward silence. "How are you?" she asked. "I'm okay. You?" "I'm managing. I moved into an apartment near campus. I'm teaching some illustration classes at the community college." "That's good," I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, I didn't want her to be miserable. I just didn't want to be part of her life anymore. "Lucas," she started, but I held up my hand. "Don't. There's nothing left to say. I hope you're doing well. I hope you figure out whatever you need to figure out. But we're done. Completely done." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I really am sorry. For everything." "I know," I said. "It doesn't change anything, but I know." And then I walked away. And this time, it didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. Oh, that's my story. That's how my wife betrayed me for $70,000 and a chance at a different life. I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably analyzing every detail, looking for what I did wrong, what I could have done differently. Believe me, I've done that too. I've spent countless hours replaying every moment, every conversation, every decision. And the truth is, I did make mistakes. I was probably too trusting, too willing to believe the best, too focused on being the perfect, supportive husband to notice that my wife didn't actually want that life. But you know what? I don't regret how I loved her. I loved her completely, honestly, with my whole heart. The fact that she couldn't appreciate that, couldn't reciprocate it, that's on her, not me. I've learned that you can do everything right and still lose. You can be kind, generous, supportive, loyal, and it still might not be enough. Not because you're not enough, but because the other person wants something different, something you can't give them, sometimes something they can't even articulate. And that's a hard lesson. It's a painful lesson, but it's an important one. Because now I know that in my next relationship, whenever that happens, I'll be smarter. I'll be more aware. I'll trust my instincts. I'll set healthier boundaries. I'll pay attention to actions, not just words. But I'll also still love deeply, still be generous, still be supportive, because that's who I am. I'm not going to let Emma's betrayal turn me into someone cynical and closed off. She took 5 years of my life. She took $70,000 worth of trust. She took my belief in happily ever after. But she didn't take my ability to love. She didn't take my kindness. She didn't take my hope for the future. Those things are still mine, and no one can take them unless I let them. So if you're watching this and you've been through something similar, if someone you loved has betrayed you, has lied to you, has used you, I want you to know, it's not your fault. You trusted someone you loved. That's not weakness. That's courage. And yes, you'll be more careful next time. You'll be smarter. You'll protect yourself better. But don't let it make you afraid to love again. Don't let it convince you that everyone is like the person who hurt you. Don't let it steal your hope. Because the alternative is spending the rest of your life alone, protected but isolated, safe but lonely. And that's no way to live. I'm not there yet. I'm still figuring it out, still healing, still learning how to be open again. But I will be. Eventually. And so will you. The betrayal doesn't get to win. We do. That's it. That's my story. Thanks for listening. And if you made it this far, if you sat through this whole thing, I appreciate it more than you know. Sometimes just telling the story, getting it all out there, is part of the healing. And maybe, just maybe, hearing it will help someone else avoid the same pain. Or at least know they're not alone if they're going through it. Take care of yourselves out there. Trust carefully. Love deeply. And always, always listen to your gut. I'm Lucas. And I'm going to be okay. We all are.